Greetings all, this is Hairy Nick. I am joined by Mr. Justin.
Hello!
Rightio. Now, it's time again to do an X-Wing upgrade tech. It's been far too long since I've done any of these. We've had so many new articles and releases and reveals from FFG. We haven't really had a nice lull in the schedule to do one of these. And today we are expecting, hopefully, a rules release for Legion, or maybe, fingers crossed, finally a new product for X-Wing, but no.
None of those.
Nothing this morning. So let's get stuck into a few things that have been on the back burner for quite a while. Let's do an X-Wing upgrade tech, and this is something I've been threatening on making a long time, because we have to sit down and really have a conversation about Harpoon missiles. Because it's tearing up the meta. Like, big time.
It's quite good.
It is quite good indeed. Quite powerful.
Some might say maybe too good.
Absolutely. A lot of people, and I agree with this, are saying, look, the meta's in a good place right now. It's nice and open. But a lot of people are also saying, well, hang on, this one card is being a bit too oppressive. It's showing up in too many lists. I think the good thing about the meta right now is the factions have opened up a lot more. The Empire in particular is seeing a lot more.
Oh, yeah.
Lot more relevancy. And indeed, the Empire, all in all, is a faction that probably uses this card the least, but also has lists that deal with it the best. We're seeing Palpaces actually get into tournaments now and winning tournaments, and they are probably the best thing to deal with Harpoon missiles. In that you don't fly your ships near each other, and they have enough agility and dice modification shenanigans to make sure the Harpoon missiles don't hit anyway.
Exactly.
And that's a really good thing. But having said that, yes, there is some lists that the Empire use that use Harpoon missiles. We'll talk more about the lists in a tick, but let's have a look at the card in question.
So, Harpoon missiles. Attack. Target lock. Discard this card to perform this attack. If this attack hits, after the attack resolves, assign the harpooned condition to the defender.
Yep, costs 4 squad points, attacked with 4 red dice at range 2 to 3. The harpooned condition card reads, when you are hit by an attack and there is at least one uncancelled crit result, each other ship at range 1 suffers 1 damage, then discard this card and receive 1 face down damage card. So basically, splash damage. When you are destroyed, each ship at range 1 suffers 1 damage. Action, discard this card, then roll 1 attack die. On hit or crit result, suffer 1 damage. So you're always guaranteed to get rid of it, but there's a 1 in 2 chance that you'll suffer 1 damage at the same time. This is a very powerful effect, and when I first saw this card get revealed, it occurred to me that, hey, this seems like very good value. I hope that this effect isn't too easy to trigger. I hope the build-arounds don't really exist to really abuse this. Because, let's face it, that top paragraph on Harpoon in particular, the ability to give 1 damage to every other ship and yourself as well after you suffer a crit, is pretty potent. Crits aren't the most easy thing to get in X-Wing, but there are build-arounds to make them easier. We've seen this for a long time with the pilot Bosk, because he wants crits, because he can cancel crits to assign 2 damage instead of a crit. And that usually involves things like Mangler Cannon, that kind of stuff. And the upshot of all this is, now that this card's been in circulation for nearly 3 months, we've seen that, yes, indeed, it can be abused. That's pretty much the bottom line of what we're seeing here. Getting crits is relatively straightforward. It's not the most easy thing in the world, but the biggest issue is crits are relatively straightforward to get off the back of other Harpoon missiles. And that's probably the biggest issue I have with this card. Probably the reason I feel like this is relatively oppressive. And this is because of guidance chips. Guidance chips can modify one of your dice on all your ordnance attacks to a crit if your ship has a primary weapons value of 3. We're even seeing Harpoon missiles on ships with guidance chips that don't have a primary weapon value of 3, just giving it a regular hit result. But even that alone is good enough, as long as there's a way somewhere else in the list to get crits pretty consistently. So before we go any further, let's take a look at the full gamut of missiles available. The list has gotten quite big, Justin.
Yeah, there's 12. There are 12 missiles.
There are currently 12 missiles in the game of X-Wing right now. The last time I did this, I took a look at the cruise missiles. Which, by the way, just to recap, I don't think that's a broken card. I think you have to really work to make it work well. I know a lot of people were concerned about that when it was first released, but I was never fully convinced by it. I think it's a good card. I think it has its lists, but it's not quite the same power level as Harpoon Missiles. So basically, Harpoon Missile is another one of these missiles that just give you a big attack, and they give you some bonus when the attack hits. Right off the bat, let's eliminate all the cards on this spread that don't do that. They give you some alternate condition when they hit. You cancel all the hit results. You get a jam token. You get target locks. You get ion tokens. You get a face-up damage card in the case of Advanced Weapon Missile. So let's just eliminate all of those first. And we're left with these missiles here. And it's right here that we can see the power level of the Harpoon Missiles pretty clearly. Basically, in the 4 squad point cost range, we have other missiles that just give you a powerful attack with a bit of upside. 4 red dice is not unique in any way. Concussion missiles also do the same thing. But specifically comparing these two cards side by side, Concussion Missile and Harpoon Missile, we see there's a pretty glaring issue between them.
Yeah.
And that's that first paragraph.
Yeah.
You read Concussion Missile.
Spend your target lock and discard this card to perform this attack.
You go to Harpoon Missile.
Discard this card to perform this attack.
And you don't spend the target lock. And that's pretty much the crux of what's going on here.
Yeah.
Apart from that, they both fire with 4 red dice. They both fire at range 2 to 3. And they both have a second paragraph that gives them a bit of upside. I would argue, situationally, the upside on Concussion Missile is actually just straight up better than Harpoon Missiles. But not spending your target lock on Harpoon Missiles just makes it that much better.
Yeah.
I don't care how good the upside is on Concussion Missiles. It's just not enough to overcome that. Having the target lock is very potent on Harpoon Missiles. To get that similar kind of effect, you have to go all the way up to Homing Missiles, which cost a point more. And it's very similar. It only discards the card, you don't spend the target lock, but the same deal, 4 red dice, range 2 to 3, with a bit of upside. And the upside on Harpoon Missile, in my opinion, is just better than Homing Missiles. It's made a card that cost 1 more point redundant.
Yeah.
And that's an issue. There's a real issue in X-Wing.
Yeah, you don't want to be doing that.
No, and let's be frank, Homing Missiles is not a bad card. It might be a redundant card now, but if you look at it in a vacuum, it's good. People were using it on Miranda quite a lot. It's a pretty potent card. It means evade tokens can't be used. It's the one thing that's going to help you get around this card. And it means you have a pretty decent one-off attack that's going to help a lot, especially if you have a bombing list and you don't have really big, decent attacks. If we take a look at the cards that cost 1 point less than the Harpoon Missiles, we also have cards that don't spend their target lock. But the difference is, for these cards in cruise missiles and proton rockets, you have to jump through hoops to use them. Particularly proton rockets has to be fired at range 1. That's pretty difficult to pull off.
Yeah.
And again, this is not a terrible card. I've seen this played a lot on A-Wings, on the Inquisitor, that kind of stuff. It doesn't combo with the Inquisitor's ability because he's always, quote-unquote, firing at range 1. That's only on his primary attacks. So he doesn't get to use this at range 1, 2, 3. That'd be a bit annoying. But you get 5 red dice if you jump through the hoops. And, well, they can be flown around. They can be dealt with.
Yeah.
Unlike the Harpoon Missiles. I mean, there are ways to deal with Harpoon Missiles. You can fly your ships apart from each other. But it feels a bit more severe. It really is oppressive in the terms of how it makes your opponent fly. And that's a bit of an issue. And I want to talk more about the whole issue with not having spent the target lock.
Yep.
Because as I mentioned before, when you couple it with guidance chips on, say, Skirg bombers, Kirax fighters, 3 red primary, guidance chips, gives them a crit in all their attacks. It means other Harpoon Missiles triggers the previous Harpoon Missiles. That's why we're seeing them in multiples. We're not seeing Harpoon Missiles flown as singles. Theoretically, you could do that if you had other ways of triggering crits. But the most consistent way is fly multiples of it, and you don't have to rely on one particular ship being the first one to fire. You can change up the strategy on the fly, which is really, really powerful. And it just has this knock-on effect. And when you give it a little bit of a push power level-wise by not making it spend the target lock, you A, guarantee that that harpoon condition is going to land on your opponent, and B, trigger harpooned more frequently.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's twice as valuable. I get the impression that FFG looked at the spread and go, you know what, concussion missiles aren't being flown and homing missiles aren't being seen much. Let's amp up the power level just a little bit. And I gotta say, I don't like that approach. You know, blah, 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 power creep.
Yeah.
But the most important thing is I feel like X-Wing, all in all, is a very balanced game. And when you mess up the squad points by even 1 or 2 points, this kind of stuff happens.
It changes the game very much so.
And then you see things flown everywhere. We saw it with the Jumpmaster. It was arguably a few squad points too cheap. That was the common argument I heard everywhere. Not everyone agreed with the nerf they gave it, where they took away several upgrades, but for whatever reason, it's worked, and that's fine. And this is the whole thing with harpoon missiles. You make it a point more... I think you make it a point more, it's still too good. It's still just better than homing missiles. I think the biggest problem with this is it doesn't spend the target lock. And when you do that, it makes harpooned a little bit harder to sink. It makes harpooned a little bit harder to trigger. And the card just feels a bit fairer overall. And I think that's what we're talking about mainly. So let's take a look at some of the ways it's been implemented. And I think this is the most telling factor as to why I feel this card's a bit too good. Miranda Nim. Now, Miranda Nim's been in the meta for a long time. Pretty much ever since Nim was released. I think the combo alone of Miranda Nim is fine. I think it's the cards around it that has made it a bit too pushed when we had that combination with Genius and Trajectory Simulator. Genius can bump and drop bombs, blah, blah, blah. They've reined this in with FAQs, but now this list also has the issue of taking harpoon missiles. For 6 points, it runs harpoon missiles and extra munitions on both of the ships. And they don't really care about it too much. They're bombers. But whatever, they'll put it on. It's 6 points on 2 of their ships that cost half of their squad. So, mathematically, it's not a huge expenditure.
No.
It's going to mean this list that already has a lot of firepower in its bombs now has an amazing Alpha Strike. And now this list can Alpha Strike, bomb, and in some cases even Arc Dodge. It's one of the reasons the list is doing so well. And I think this list would feel a lot fairer if harpoon missiles was not such a huge factor. We also had this list which appeared in the ACT regionals over the weekend, which I thought was kind of interesting. Because 3 Lock Revenants is what I'd consider a tier 2 list. It's not finishing highly in a lot of different tournaments, but it comes up every now and then. Lock Revenants are great basic utility ships. They can take like auto blasters, crew, maybe some ordnance. But basically what this list here is doing is Deadeye, extra munitions, and harpoon missiles on all 3 of its ships. It's not using turrets. It's sacrificing a lot of its utility just to get harpoon missiles on. And the ships are good. Like, you get 30 hit points across your squad. On small ships, you don't give MOV if you lose half their life, which sucks. I think they need to change that rule, but that's another conversation to have. And basically, this just shows that you can actually completely rein back a pretty average list, just stick in harpoon missiles, and it's just competitive.
Yeah, all of a sudden you're sitting there going, oh, I can make the top 8.
Pretty much. Pretty much. I mean, I love the spiciness of Boba Fett in this list. I think it's the perfect list for Boba Fett, and I honestly do want to try this at some stage. But at the same time, it's not relying too heavily on any crazy combo or synergy. Just cut and paste in harpoon missiles, and it's a very, very powerful list. Let's have a quick chat about this list as well. Kylo Ren alongside 2 Rogue Squadron veterans. Both of them have harpoon missiles, Deadeye, and guidance ships. And it's an interesting list. It's very, very powerful. It relies on Kylo Ren to get those crits. But what's most interesting about it is it's not running the loadout arsenal title on the Alpha Class Starwing. It's not relying on the fact that you can use missiles even when you have a weapons disable token. What it's saying is harpoon missiles are so valuable that you don't have to really fall back on these kind of synergies. Just finding a way to get them into a squad efficiently alongside an ace is pretty potent.
Especially when you have a reload action.
Absolutely. I don't think reload makes it too insane. I don't think it's the thing that's pushing it over the edge, but it's good. If you don't kill these in the short game, they're going to reload and get it back and punish you pretty severely. I mean, yeah, I look at things like this and go, yep, that's probably a more fair application of the Harpoon missiles. It makes a bit more sense. But basically, it shows you that you can put a pretty light Alpha Strike build. As long as you have Harpoon missiles, you're having a nice time. Alongside an Arc Dodger and Kylo Ren, I mean, I love this Kylo Ren build. I'm never going to get sick of seeing that.
No.
That's fine. Look, Arc Dodgers are a part of X-Wing. Arc Dodgers are something that means you have to invest points in. They usually have less health. And it scales with the pilot's input. It gets better and better. But when I see things like that, just copy and paste the Harpoon missiles, I do start to get a bit worried. Because it doesn't seem like they have any particular build around. It doesn't seem like it relies on long-term flying, strategizing too much. It's just a powerful Alpha Strike, which is probably punching a bit too much above its weight. Probably just having a bit too much of an impact. And really, that's my thoughts overall. That's what I'm thinking about the Harpoon missiles. I mean, you fly Imperial Aces, Justin.
Yep.
You're probably feeling the best about this right now, because I don't think this is too oppressive on Imperial Aces. But anything like that's just like fair, regular stat ships, like rebels that fly in a tight-knit group are just hating this right now.
Yeah, I must say, I haven't got my Alpha Class Star Wings yet.
But you want to give it a go.
But I do.
Also in the conversation is, do we think about putting this on Vader or the Inquisitor? I don't think it's a great option. I think cruise missiles or proton rockets are probably just better.
Yeah, just.
But the fact of the matter is we're considering something so expensive. I think there are lists that could justify Harpoon missiles on the Inquisitor.
Oh, they're definitely out there probably somewhere.
Absolutely. It just as a way to sneak it in. And I just feel like that's a bit wrong. I feel like that's a bit wrong. I don't want to be too negative in these videos. I don't want to dump on people's strategies. If they're having a fun time flying this kind of stuff, what I don't like to see is stuff that's oppressive on other people's game strategies. I don't like to see stuff that doesn't rely on solid flying or strategizing, because that's really what X-Wing's all about.
Yeah.
And it's why I want to call this out and say, I think FFG maybe have scaled the power level on this a bit too much. They might have made a bit of a mistake on this. And that's why I think, I think in a future FAQ, they should look at making you spend the target lock on Harpoon missiles. That's my thoughts overall.
Yeah.
I think you're in total agreement, aren't you, Justin?
I really am. It's too good at the point cost that it's at.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the comment section, guys, have you flown with or against Harpoon missiles? What do you think? Do you think it needs a solution? What's that solution? Do you think it's fine? Tell me why you think it is justified and balanced. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But in the meantime, guys, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.
Like our Facebook, like our Twitter.
And we'll catch you later.
Bye.